Hey, what's up, guys? We are back. It's the HPR Chronicles with Shakur and Smith.
Me?
What's going on, Chris? What's going on with you this week, man? What's happening?
Things are good.
That's good.
Monkey's off my back.
Oh, that's good. Things are good with me, too.
Good.
All right, guys. It's a podcast about history, politics, and race from a pop culture perspective. We always try to break it down simple and plain so that you guys can understand it. Same spiel every week. I'm a film director from Trinidad and Tobago, so I've traveled a lot, and I love history and politics. Chris is a veteran of the Army Reserves that works for the VA with a passion for history and politics as well. It's about truth. No, we're not pro any race, just pro truth. If the truth offends you, we're sorry.
Not sorry.
That's our slogan every week. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I want to take time to thank all of our listeners, our watchers and listeners on YouTube, and our listeners on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play Music, Buzzsprout, Stitcher, all the cell phone podcast streaming apps. We're on all of them. So thank you guys for checking in and listening, those who are listening. If you like what we're doing, don't forget to subscribe. Please subscribe. Yeah, so every week we do a topic. So what me and Chris started doing was we don't really tell each other our topics, so we can kind of engage. So today I asked Chris his topic, and he wanted to keep it a secret. You know what I'm saying? What he's going to talk about for next week. So he didn't ask me mine, so I never tell him anyway. So I usually do the first show and stuff. So mine is actually about the Berlin Wall.
Oh, okay.
That's what mine's about, East and West Germany. And it's funny because when I was in Cuba a couple of years ago, like I said, we like to travel. You know, I was at this really popular club, and I met some girls from Berlin.
Yeah.
And, you know, guys, if you haven't been to Cuba, Cuba is one of those places that when you go to, it's one of those interestingly visited places. And what I mean by that is when you meet foreigners there from around the world, because Cuba is such an interesting place to visit, because of the history, when you meet people from around the world in Cuba, you tend to form this kind of bond while you're there.
Okay.
And kind of hang and you're from LA, we're from Berlin, we met people from Washington DC, we met people from, Chicago, like all over.
Okay.
From Canada, I remember, just one of those places when you meet there, everybody just kind of vibes.
Okay.
And it's so funny because I met these girls from Berlin, really attractive. And I remember one of them, her birthday was coming up, and she was like, "Hey guys, let's meet in Berlin for my birthday."
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'd always heard that Berlin was a great place to visit, cool party place and stuff like that. And I remember everybody in the group was like, "Yeah, we'll go." And I was even saying I would go, knowing deep down I probably couldn't because of work stuff. But but it just sounded like such a fun time. You know what I mean? To go to Berlin, Germany. And I've been to quite a few other cities, guys, in Germany, but never been to Berlin.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And I'll definitely have to go. Especially after reading all this. And I'm a huge fan of Steven Spielberg, and I know he did the movie too. Not too long ago. What was it? Where they had the whole Checkpoint Charlie in the movie?
Not Schindler's.
No, not that one. The other one. Oh man, I forget the name of it. But
okay.
We'll look it up before the end of the show.
Okay.
But it's that one Steven Spielberg film, and that a lot of scenes at the Berlin Wall was about this standoff that had happened at Checkpoint Charlie in the movie and all that kind of stuff.
I don't remember for some reason.
So anyway, this is a long one, and the girl that, the woman that wrote this op-ed, her name is Jennifer Rosenberg. I want to just give credit, and a lot of times, kind of like what we always say, this show is a factual based show.
Yes. Yep.
So a lot of times we'll have to just research and just kind of read off you guys what we're saying, and the whole purpose of it is so that instead of you having to go and read all the stuff that I did this week, you could just sit in your car and listen.
Yeah.
Or you could just watch. That's the
try to break it down
the purpose of it. Yeah. And Jennifer, I'm sure she just did the same thing, like studied a bunch of stuff and wrote her thing. The information is out there. So out of all the ones that I read, I thought hers was the most thorough.
Got it.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
So I just wanted to give you guys my story about Germany and Berlin and stuff. But yeah, I'll definitely end up going. But yeah, let me get into this and try and go through it slowly. This was pretty thorough. And I always say, like, I love this podcast because I get to learn things that I've always wanted to know about, that I've kind of heard but never dived into.
Correct. Yeah.
And it makes you dive into this stuff. And what's funny is, in the future, if you ever find yourself in situations where people are talking about this stuff, you can talk about it from an educated standpoint. Yeah,
instead of just like.
Yeah, because you know what's funny, Crispy? Everything we talk about, I actually remember all of it.
Me too.
Because I read it and have to I remember all of it. So if I'm ever in a situation where I have to talk about it, I'll be able to.
Which is kind of crazy, because I think, like, here we are. Like, actually, like, your daughter was like, who would study on purpose? Well, there's a good reason for it, but it's just interesting. Like, I probably would have never thought about, I would be doing something like that after school's out, being done with school.
Just reading all this stuff.
I mean, in life, you still continue to, study and make yourself better. So this is just another convenient way for us.
Yep, exactly. All right, guys. So let me get into it. I'm gonna go slow. It's pretty long, but I think we should be able to cover it. It's gonna be a long episode.
Okay.
Because we usually have 2 or 3 pages. This is like 6. You know what I mean? So here we go. The Berlin Wall. Erected in the dead of night on August 13, 1961, the Berlin Wall, known as the Berliner Mauer in German, was a physical division between West Berlin and East Berlin. Its purpose was to keep disaffected East Germans from fleeing to the West. When the Berlin Wall fell on November 9th, 1989, its destruction was nearly as instantaneous as its creation. For 28 years, the Berlin Wall had been a symbol of the Cold War and the Iron Curtain between the Soviet-led communism and the democracies of the West. When it fell, it was celebrated around the world. And I remember when even Reagan, Gorbachev, tear down that wall. Those famous lines, you know what I mean? Okay, so let's go into the next section, a divided Germany and Berlin. At the end of World War II, the Allied powers conquered Germany into 4 zones, as agreed at the Potsdam Conference. And I did look up the Potsdam Conference, but it was just too much to add within this podcast. But you guys could look that up. It was just basically a conference talking about this. That's all it was. But you guys could look it up. Each was occupied by either the United States, Great Britain, France, or the Soviet Union. The same was done in Germany's capital city, Berlin. The relationship between the Soviet Union and the other 3 Allied powers quickly disintegrated. As a result, the cooperative atmosphere of the occupation of Germany turned competitive and aggressive. One of the best known incidents was the Berlin blockade in June of 1948, during which the Soviet Union stopped all supplies from reaching West Berlin. Although an eventual reunification of Germany had been intended, the new relationship between the Allied powers turned Germany into West versus East and democracy versus communism. In 1949, this new organization of Germany became official when the 3 zones occupied the United States. Let me say that again. In 1949, this new organization of Germany became official when the 3 zones occupied by the United States, Great Britain, and France combined to form West Germany, the Federal Republic of Germany, or the FRG. The zone occupied by the Soviet Union quickly followed by forming East Germany, the German Democratic Republic, or the GDR. And you see how the split happened, This same division into West and East occurred in Berlin. Since the city of Berlin had been situated entirely within the Soviet zone of occupation, West Berlin became an island of democracy within communist East Germany.
Okay. So Berlin, the city, was in East Berlin, right? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. I'll read it again. Since the city of Berlin had been situated entirely within the zone of occupation, it was occupied by the Soviets. West Berlin became an island of democracy within communism East Berlin, right? Because West Berlin was in there too.
Damn.
You know what I mean? But France and the United States, they had control of that, so that was democracy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Within their whole deal. Within a short period of time after the war, living conditions in West Germany and East Germany became distinctly different. With the help and support of its occupying powers, West Germany set up a capitalist society. The economy experienced such a rapid growth that it became known as the economic miracle. With hard work, individuals living in West Germany were able to live well, buy gadgets and appliances, and travel as they wished. Nearly the opposite was true in East Germany. The Soviet Union had viewed their zone as a spoil of war. They had pilfered factory equipment and other valuable assets from their zone and shipped them back to the Soviet Union. When East Germany became its own country in 1949, it was under the direct influence of the Soviet Union, and a communist society was established. The economy of East Germany dragged, and individual freedoms were severely restricted, as it would be in a communist society. You know what I mean? Mass immigration from the East. Outside of Berlin, East Germany had been fortified in 1952. By the late 1950s, many people living in East Germany wanted out. No longer able to stand the repressive living conditions, they would head to West Berlin, although some of them would be stopped on their way. Hundreds of thousands made it across the border. Once across, these refugees were housed in warehouses and then flown to West Germany. Many of those who escaped were young, trained professionals. By the early 1960s, East Germany was rapidly losing both its labor force and its population. Between 1949 and 1961, it's estimated that nearly 2.7 million people fled East Germany. The government was desperate to stop this mass exodus. The obvious leak was the easy access East Germans had to West Berlin. With the support of the Soviet Union, there had been several attempts to simply take over West Berlin. Although the Soviet Union even threatened the United States with the use of nuclear weapons over this issue, the United States and other Western countries were committed to defending West Berlin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Desperate to keep its citizens, East Germany knew that something needed to be done. Famously, 2 months before the Berlin Wall appeared, Walter Ulbricht, head of the State Council of the GDR, said, Niemand hat die I can't speak German. Einmal zu retten. That was pretty good, though. Okay. That was pretty good. These iconic words mean no one intended to build a wall. After this statement, the exodus of East Germans only increased. Over those next 2 months of 1961, nearly 20,000 people fled to the west. So the Berlin Wall goes up. Rumors had spread that something might happen to tighten the border of East and West Berlin. No one was expecting the speed nor the absoluteness of the Berlin Wall. Just past midnight on the night of August 12th, 1961, trucks with soldiers and construction workers rumbled through East Berlin. While most Berliners were sleeping, these crews began tearing up streets that entered into West Berlin. They dug holes to put up concrete posts and strung barbed wire all across the border between East and West Berlin.
Wow.
Telephone wires were between East and West Berlin were also cut, and railroad lines were blocked.
Damn.
Berliners were shocked when they woke up that morning. What had once been a very fluid border was now rigid. No longer could East Berliners cross the border for operas, plays, soccer games, or any other activity. No longer could the approximately 60,000 commuters head to West Berlin for well-paying jobs. No longer could families, friends, and lovers cross the border to meet their loved ones. Whichever side of the border one went to sleep on during the night of August 12th, they were stuck on the other side for decades. That's crazy.
That's crazy. Like if you were visiting someone.
Imagine you're going to see your girl and you wake up and the wall's up and it's like, I can't go home, babe. What the what?
Like, I got work.
Be killing me, yeah.
Not today. And you can't call anybody because the line's been cut, everything.
That's crazy.
Wow.
People were stuck for decades. Wow. So, the total length of the Berlin Wall was 91 miles. It can not only through the center of Berlin, but also wrapped around West Berlin, entirely cutting it off from the rest of East Germany. the wall itself went through 4 major transformations during its 28-year history. It started out as a barbed wire fence with concrete posts. Just days later, on August 15th, it was quickly replaced with a sturdier, more permanent structure. This one was made of concrete blocks and topped with barbed wire. Damn. The first 2 versions of the wall were replaced by the third version in 1965. This consisted of concrete wall supported by steel girders. The fourth version of the wall, constructed from 1975 to 1980, was the most complicated and thorough. It consisted of concrete slabs reaching nearly 12 feet high and 4 feet wide. It also had a smooth pipe running across the top to hinder people from scaling it. By the time the Berlin Wall fell in 1989, there was a 300-foot no man's land and an additional inner wall. Soldiers patrolled with dogs and raked ground showed footprints. Oh, okay. So I guess they had footprints that would show they would just rake it up.
Okay.
The East Germans also installed anti-vehicle trenches, electric fences, massive light system, 302 watchtowers, 20 bunkers, and even minefields. Over the years, propaganda from the East German government would say that the people of East Germany welcomed the wall. In reality, the oppression they suffered and the potential consequences they faced kept many from speaking out to the contrary. So the people didn't like it, but the propaganda was East Germans liked it. When you think about it, who wants to live under a communist society and forced to stay on one side of like a city or a gate when they have loved ones on the other side?
Correct.
That's crazy. Although most of the border between East and West consisted of layers of preventative measures, there were little more than a handful of official openings along the Berlin Wall. These checkpoints were the infrequent use of officials and others with special permission to cross the border. The most famous of these, Checkpoint Charlie. Crispy, can you do me a favor and get your phone and look up the Steven Spielberg movie that he did? Because I want to touch on something about it. The most famous of these was Checkpoint Charlie, located on the border between East and West Berlin at Friedrichstrasse. Checkpoint Charlie was the main access point for Allied personnel and Westerners to cross the border. Soon after the Berlin Wall was built, Checkpoint Charlie became an icon of the Cold War. It has frequently been featured in movies and books set during this time period. The funny thing about it is, I've always heard of Checkpoint Charlie. Mm-hmm. I even almost directed a movie. Oh, it was this one, The Bridge of Spies.
Okay. Got it.
That's the Spielberg movie. Yeah. I even almost directed a music video for a group in LA, and the name of the group was Checkpoint Charlie. And now I know where they got the name from. I never knew. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's crazy. Escape attempts and the death line. The Berlin Wall did prevent the majority of East Germans from immigrating to the West, but it did not deter everyone. During the history of the Berlin Wall, it is estimated that about 5,000 people made it safely across. Some early successful attempts were simple, like throwing a rope over the Berlin Wall and climbing up. Others were brash, like ramming a truck or bus into the Berlin Wall and making a run for it.
Wow.
Still others were suicidal, as some people jumped from the upper story windows of apartment buildings that bordered the Berlin Wall.
Thinking that they could jump over it?
Yeah, thinking they could jump over it, and it was suicide, yep. In September of 1961, the window of these buildings were boarded up, and the sewers connecting East and West were shut off.
Wow.
It's crazy. Other buildings were torn down to clear space for what would become known as the Todstellini, the death line, is what that word means, or death strip. This open area allowed a direct line of fire so East German soldiers could carry out Schießbefehl, a 1960 order that they were to shoot anyone trying to escape. 29 people were killed within the first year. As the Berlin Wall became stronger and larger, the escape attempts became more elaborately planned. Some people dug tunnels from the basements of buildings in East Berlin under the Berlin Wall and into West Berlin. Another group saved scraps of cloth and built a hot air balloon and flew over the wall.
What?
Are you serious? That's crazy.
Man.
Groups were building like makeshift hot air
Wow.
balloons and floating over the wall.
You would think they had to do it at a time when it was dark.
Yeah, it has
Because
to.
otherwise someone they would have shot
see him
them.
and shot him down. They had
Oh,
over 300
wow.
and something posts or whatever watching the wall. Unfortunately, not all escape attempts were successful. Since the East German guards were allowed to shoot anyone nearing the eastern side without warning, which is crazy,
Yeah.
there was also a chance of death in any and all escape plots. It is estimated that somewhere between 192 and 239 people died at the Berlin Wall. Damn, the 50th victim of the wall. One of the most infamous cases of a failed attempt occurred on August 17, 1962.
Okay.
In the early afternoon, two 18-year-old men ran toward the wall with the intention of scaling it. The first of the young men to reach it was successful. The second one, Peter Fetcher, was not. As he was about to scale the wall, a border guard opened fire. Fetcher continued to climb but ran out of energy just as he reached the top. He then tumbled back onto the East German side. To the shock of the world, Fetcher was just left there. The East German guards did not shoot him again, nor did they go to his aid.
Wow.
Fetcher shouted in agony for nearly an hour. Once he had bled to death, East German guards carried his body off. He became the 50th person to die at the Berlin Wall and a permanent symbol of struggle for freedom. That's crazy. Communism is dismantled. The fall of the Berlin Wall happened nearly as suddenly as its rise. There had been signs that the communist bloc was weakening, but the East German communist leaders insisted that East Germany just needed a moderate change rather than a drastic revolution. East German citizens did not agree. Russian leader Mikhail Gorbachev, 1985 to 1991. I'm sure you all have heard of him, especially our generation.
Yeah.
My daughter hasn't, or your son hasn't.
Nope.
Was attempting to save his country and decided to break off from many of its satellites. As communism began to falter in Poland, Hungary, and Czechoslovakia in 1988 and 1989, new exodus points were open to East Germans who wanted to flee to the West. It's interesting. In East Germany, protests against the government were countered by threats of violence from its leader, Erich Honecker. In October of 1989, Honecker was forced to resign after losing support from Gorbachev. He was replaced by Egon Krenz, who decided that violence was not going to solve the country's problems. Krenz also loosened travel restrictions from East Germany. Suddenly, on the evening of November 9th, 1989, the East German government official Gunter Schaborowski blundered by stating in an announcement, permanent relocations can be done through all border checkpoints between the GDR, East Germany, to the FGR, West Germany or West Berlin. People were in shock. Were the borders really opened? East Germans tentatively approached the border and indeed found that border guards were letting people cross.
Oh, wow.
Very quickly, the Berlin Wall was inundated with people from both sides.
Which I remember that too.
Yeah, I remember that. Some began chipping at the Berlin Wall with hammers and chisels. There was an impromptu and massive celebration along the Berlin Wall with people hugging, kissing, singing, cheering, and crying.
Yeah.
The Berlin Wall was eventually chipped away into smaller pieces. Some the size of a coin and others in big slabs. The pieces have become collectibles and are stored in both homes and museums. There's also now a Berlin Wall memorial at the site on Barner Strasse. You know, after the Berlin Wall came down, East and West Germany reunified into a single German state on October 3rd, 1990. And I need a pen. Do you have a pen? Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks. Guys, that's the Berlin Wall.
Okay.
It's crazy. I didn't even know, like I said, half of that when I was reading it. And it was, go ahead.
I was going to say, so basically when we were born, it was already there, erected.
Yeah.
And obviously like you said, I remember. I mean, it was televised like on MTV and everything. Like that.
I remember. I remember all that.
I was like, what?
Yeah, and
but I didn't. It's amazing to see what they went through, but also shows that no matter what, when people are oppressed and they're trying to get to someplace better, they'll do everything they can, which is almost kind of like, we could take it back to slavery, but we can also take it back to what's going on right now with immigration and stuff like that.
Same thing. I mean, you can't keep people down, man, and it's not cool. And I mean, and I take my hat off to those people for not settling, and wanting freedom and wanting to be able to cross and be with their families and loved ones and stuff like that, and
or seeking a better life.
And seeking a better life. And it's funny that America is so funny. They made a big deal about when Reagan said, Gorbachev, tear down that wall. And honestly, while I was studying this, I was thinking that would come up in my study, and it didn't.
Oh, okay.
Because it was just a statement. I had thought for some reason
he did something.
That he had something to do with it coming down.
I'm trying to remember if I really
thought
that or not, but
I thought that America had some influence on it.
But it seems like they just realized this is not working. Like we are,
that's just
things are getting worse and worse.
But that's a famous statement known around the world. If you don't study it, you would think that Reagan had something to do with that wall coming down.
Well, at least our history makes it seem like that statement is so big, and that Reagan.
Right. But, because of course America wants to. You know what I'm saying? Take credit for something as usual.
Yeah, that they did.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's crazy, bro.
But yeah, just to kind of emphasize, people, when you're oppressed, things aren't going well, or there is a better place. People will try to get there. I mean, this was citizens of pretty much their own country, but yet they were trying to get to the to the other side, on the other side of that wall, which again, it's very it's just very ironic.
It reminds me of Trump wanting to do his 800-mile wall right now, and all the people coming over right now because they keep hearing about this. And it's the same thing that's going to happen. I mean, it's not going to work.
No, and and then he. Even though he should be taking so much responsibility for the deaths that are occurring, for people coming here that are actually being detained here, but weirdly and crazy enough, he blames it on Democrats. Right. And how do you blame? There's no Democrats in the offices, or that's leading in place of power or authority in those departments that are running those departments. There's no Democrats running them. So how do you blame them? It's just crazy. Yeah. Which, anyway, that's a whole different subject.
Yeah. That's a whole different subject. But now when I go to Berlin, which I am going to go to Berlin, now I'm going to go visit the wall.
Yeah, I would like to. Or is it still there? Is it?
Yeah. Well, they have like a memorial remnants of it, stuff like that. Like one I saw when I was studying, I saw like one of the places that tourists go to. They had a piece of it erected and stuff like that. It was really cool. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I would. Berlin would be nice. I mean, I do have to get over to just Europe, anywhere over on the other continent.
Yeah, I keep telling them guys.
I will. Yeah.
He needs to get over there. To me, you haven't lived until you've really seen the world.
Well, yeah, I agree. I do agree. I mean, I've been out of luckily, I have been out, or I have at least gotten out of. Of course, I'm not in Illinois anymore. I lived in Wisconsin. I was in the. Even though with the military, I didn't go overseas. I've been different places. Right. Simply Canada, or been on a cruise in those islands. But yeah, it would be nice to just see a place where things have been around for so long. Yeah. Much longer than
and you
history
really
of America.
Could see where it all comes from and all that. So it's really, really good. So I guess that's it on the Berlin Wall. I don't know what Chris is talking about next week. You gonna tell us what you're talking about next week? Or we just gonna bring it up?
No, I'll tell you. Actually, I was thinking. No, I want to bring it up on the show, because
cool.
there's a way I'm going to transition into.
All right, cool, perfect. So you know what, guys, so we're gonna have a new segment starting today that I didn't tell Crispy about. It's another surprise, but I meant to tell him about it though. So what we're gonna do every show is we're gonna do this day in history, and give you guys 4 historical facts that happened this day that the show actually aired.
Oh, that's cool.
It's another reason for you to check in, subscribe. So it's not just us giving you this historical, info on all these subjects and stuff. So I'm gonna read you 4 right now. So this day in history, June 26th. Today's the 26th, right?
It is. Yeah.
So this day in history, June 26th, in 1963, President John Kennedy announces Ich bin in Berlin at the Berlin Wall. That happened in 1963 on June 26th. In 1971, on June 26th, the U.S. Justice Department issues a warrant for Daniel Ellsberg, accusing him of giving away the Pentagon Papers.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? And you guys could look this stuff up. I didn't look up what everything is.
Got it.
But I want to intrigue people to go and learn the history and stuff like that.
I got it.
You know what I'm saying? In 1975, on June 26th, Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi is convicted of election fraud. And then in 1993, on June 26th, Roy Campanella, legendary catcher of the Negro Leagues and the Los Angeles Dodgers, died. Okay. This day in 1993. You know what I mean? So,
very interesting.
Again, it's a podcast about history, politics, and race. Me and Crispy, we'll discuss. Maybe the next show I'll, give you more of the information on the historical facts. Or do you think it's better to just, kind of?
I'd like to just intrigue and throwing something out there. Maybe something someone might go,
oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, let me look that up and see what it's all about. Okay. So because the whole point of the show is to inspire and teach and inform, like we say, from a factual standpoint. And just because we're both African American, it's not always going to be about something from our culture. Like today, we covered Berlin, and the Berlin Wall and stuff. We're about just teaching all history.
Correct.
Letting everyone know what happened all around the world, not just stuff that relates to who we are in our culture in Africa or the United States or slavery and this, that, and the other. Even though we talk about those subjects a lot because obviously we connect to them more because we are African American, but we're not going to leave the other subjects out. Correct. You know what I mean? So that's what I want to say about that. Once again, guys, thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys next Wednesday, where we'll find out what Chris is talking about. It's HPR Chronicles with Shakur and Smith. Don't forget to subscribe if you like what we're up to. Don't forget to follow us on social media. And we'll see you guys next week. And I'll also put some information in the description about the best times to go to Berlin.
Oh yeah.
Some hotels and stuff like that. Because that's kind of stuff I want to do when we're doing these shows. So you guys could click links in the description and you'll see what's the best time to visit Berlin. What are some of the top 2 hotels and stuff like that. What airlines give the best deal. So I'll make a note right now to put all that in the description. And once again, it's the HPR Chronicles with Shakur and Smith. Thanks for checking in. That was a quick lesson on the Berlin Wall.
Yeah.
Peace.